Hello. I got got something in the mail today, an old baritone ukulele that I won. That I got on eBay. Was bidding on it, and I honestly didn't think I was going to win because I bid pretty low because I didn't know that much about it. But it did sort of intrigue me. But ended up winning and getting it, and this will just be another project for me to fix up, and I'm not planning on keeping it. Um, Probably sell it, or if I can't sell it, maybe give it away. Who knows? But this is a vintage baritone ukulele, and the brand name is Tempo, which I had never heard of, and there's not that much information on the internet about them, other than one site that said they were made in Japan in the 60s and 70s, which, from the looks of it, sounds about right, or could be right. Um, Other than that, the only thing I could find was people asking if anybody knew about this brand Tempo. So, um, so I thought that it might be similar to the Kingston uh, baritone that I've got, which is Japanese made at the same time period, and they, there's some similarities. Uh, you know, all these older ukuleles had the same crown, the same headstock crown. It's kind of funny, but this one's a little more stripped down. It doesn't have the binding, but it has some features that the Kingston doesn't have. It's got markers on the side here, which is nice, and it's unlike the Kingston. The frets don't stick out and jab you. It's actually nice and smooth, but it's going to take some work. The nut here is loose. I kind of knew that when I got it. And the the bridge is a little odd for, I don't know if you can see it on there, for a ukulele. Uh, this saddle is notched, so that the strings are going down into it. That's really unusual and probably not a good idea um, for a ukulele. I don't know why in the world they did that, but um, anyway, it's a pretty thing. Nice red and red finish with a little bit of black in there. Um, I'm trying to figure out if it's solid wood or a laminate. I'm thinking the top and back might be solid wood because the stripes seem to match up on the other side of the wood, but I'll have to look at it closer. But the finish is pretty good. It has some nicks and dings along the edges, which is something you would expect for instruments that's been around that long. The neck has a little bit of a twist. It's not extreme or anything, but I might try to fix that. It's missing a tuner. It's got these old friction tuners, which they look kind of cheap. I don't know. I might put geared tuners on there. I know it's not wouldn't be historically correct, but this is This is an unknown brand. It's not like it's not going to destroy the value of it if I modify it. You know, it's not like it's a Martin or a Kamako or a Favila even. So yeah. So this showed up today, and gonna see what I can do with it. So I got a little update here. So I glued the bridge back on, at least for now. It's going to have to be replaced because these notches have worn down really far. This one over here where the D string would be is so low that the old strings on there, even when I tightened them up a little bit to see if the tension would change it, but it was like laying across the first fret, like actually touching it. And yeah, these other strings are really low. But anyway, I could only use three spots because of that, and the fact that I only have 3 tuners. So I've got this tuned in open in DAD, and I discovered that these tuners are actually really good for friction tuners. And if I can find another one, I will get. I'll use these because they actually work really well, a lot better than the friction tuners that were originally on my Kingston. They look ugly as sin, but they actually work very well. I can't get this to focus on that, but anyway, so it sounds pretty good. Yeah, I don't know how well that's going to come through, but it's got a pretty good tone. A lot of sustain. The top is really thin, whatever it is. So, but I think this is going to turn out to be pretty good. So after a long pause, I decided to resume work on this old baritone ukulele that I bought quite a while ago to fix up a little bit. There's not a whole lot wrong with it, but one of the things that was wrong with it is it had these old friction tuners, and they're actually very good, but there are only 3 of them, and I've searched and have not been able to find replacements for them. So I'm going to fit them with new tuners here. Now these are guitar tuners, which I normally would not put on a ukulele, but when I have some ukulele tuners extras sitting around, and when I checked them out, they are like way too short. Because this headstock is thicker than a standard ukulele. It's also a little bit thinner than guitar, a standard guitar headstock. So these will work. They're a tad higher than, let's get this guy through here. They're going to be higher than I would prefer. But they're not that far off from these, the old ones, the originals, which I'm gonna have to cheat a little bit to get this, see if I can do this comparison here. And you can see this guy's a little bit shorter, just a hair. It's kind of hard to see from that angle, but it luckily the hole size is really close to is pretty close. The old bushings here are really close in size to the new ones, which I don't think you can see there, but there we go. But the new ones are still a little tight. So what I've been doing is I've been taking a round file and just kind of going around and just opening them up just a tiny bit, because I don't want to force this down here. I could force it down there, but I don't want the wood to split or to have marks on it. But I'm not taking off much here at all, just enough so that the new bushings will go in just a little bit smoother. So I've got this widened out a tiny bit. I mean, it really doesn't take much. There was another possibility. I considered using this milling bit here and clamping this headstock up on the drill press and opening it up that way, because this is diameter of this milling bit is almost identical to this, but I decided against it. For one thing, I know I was afraid it would open it up too much, and also the chances of me doing that without causing this to chip the finish on here, you know, the wood to split a little bit, that was going to be a real high possibility. So I opted for the more labor intensive option. So okay, that's not too bad. Yeah, that's perfect. And yeah, you want to be able to press it in there. I have like done the thing where I drill it wider, because sometimes when you're dealing with an older instrument, these holes are an odd size and you kind of have to open them up a little bit. But if you overdo it and then you end up having to like glue these in, and I prefer not to do that, because if somebody has to work on this again, I don't want them to have to deal with that. That's going to make it harder. Just like if you if you glue on a nut like this, you want to use the absolute minimum amount you can, because for one thing, that's not going anywhere. Where the string tension is going to push it down, and if somebody has to work on it and you've glued the heck out of it, you've used, you know, super glue or something ridiculous like that, they're going to be cursing you. But anyway, so I got these bushings on, and I'm going to do this one, and then we're going to flip it over and line these guys up for our holes. So the next step is to put your tuning machines on and try to line it up. You want this peg to be kind of on a right angle as much as possible to this side here, and more importantly, you want it to be these two to be parallel, because if it's not perfectly at a right angle is one thing, but if you got one like this and the other one's like that, if you're OCD, that might drive you batty. I'm not really that OCD, but when it comes to instruments, I want it to be right. So I think this one's in a pretty good position. I'm just going to hold it down. I'm going to use the drill bit that I am going to use for the hole to kind of score it here. And do the same on the other side. And yeah, because if you know, this is dark wood. If I use a pencil or a pen, I may not be able to see it. I want to make sure I got the right spot. And I'm going to go ahead and drill this one and put it on before I mark the other one, because something can happen. It could get moved a tiny bit, and if I mark both of them, I could end up with them not being parallel, which will drive me batty. So the next step is to figure out how deep you want to go, and I'm going to wrap some blue tape around this drill bit as a marker. So I've got my blue tape on there, and it's up a tiny bit from the end of this screw, but I'm compensating for the thickness of this metal here, and for the fact that I might overshoot. Anyway, so a lot of times in this sort of thing, I would clamp this up and put it, you know, maybe even use the drill press, but this is not a complicated operation. I just have to try to keep this as straight as I can. Go straight up and down. Get started here. Okay. The other one. Now I can put this on here, and I didn't mention this before, but you want to make sure when you're putting these on that you have the machine part going towards the body. If you don't, they won't work correctly. So I'm starting to screw it down. I did put a little piece of wood underneath the blanket I'm using, and you should always put your instrument on something soft like this when you're working on it so you don't scratch it up. Put that on there because the peg is sticking out. So I'm kind of holding this in place while I turn down a little bit on either side. And you want to make sure you press this down to the bottom. You don't want it like sitting up when you're doing it, because then you're kind of like damaging the threads, or you're threading the metal, which you don't want to do. Make sure this guy is is down against the wood. And be slow and careful. These things are small. These screws are really small. And the heads are kind of fragile. So if you come across something like you didn't drill it deep enough, which I've done, if that seems to be the case, just gently back it out. Because if you strip this little head, you're not using that screw at all. And it's not the kind of thing you can run down to the store, run down to Home Depot and get a replacement. So slow and steady. Let's see what I got here. That one's down, this one is not. And I think we're good. And now we have a tuning peg. Or a tuning machine, I should say. So now this guy's secure. I'm going to put this one back on here and line it up. So, like I say, the most important thing is that these two are parallel. This is at a pretty good right angle, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to hold this down and repeat the process over here. So I got the tuners on there. Pretty straight. They kind of stick out a bit more, and they're a little bit, the knobs are bigger than they would like to have on a ukulele, but we did what we can do. Now, some of you might have been wondering, why didn't you try to find friction peg tuners or something along those lines to sort of preserve the vintage look? And I did look into that, but it's the same issue. This thickness would not have worked with the ukulele pegs I was looking at. I was kind of hoping, I was looking at some GravTech pegs, which are actually geared, but they look like friction pegs. But like everything else, they were just going to be too short. And so this is what we got. And the next thing is going to be to sand down this bridge here, which is going to be tricky because it's glued in. They actually even tried, they like painted it, you can see on the sides, they painted it to the sides of it to match the saddle. But I need to file them down because for some reason they like the I don't think the strings did this on their own, but they're like grooves that the strings sit into, and they're pretty deep. Some are deeper than others. So I'm going to sand it down, and plus it's a little off kilter as far as the grooves on this side, especially this string here, are a lot higher, and there's no reason for that, no logical reason, because this string is going to be thicker than all the rest, so it's you don't want it sitting up any higher because you're going to have intonation issues. But so I'm going to sand that down, and it's going to be interesting because this isn't even rounded on the top. I guess it doesn't matter because they got those deep grooves. But I may round it a little just for the looks of it. Like I say, it's glued in there. it would be so much easier to if you could just pull this sucker out. And gluing a bridge on like this is another big no-no. That just makes a headache for anybody who's gonna come after you and try to work on it. In this case, that's me. And there's absolutely no reason for it. This is not going to fall out. If this was just sitting in there like it is on other instruments, other ukuleles and guitars, it's not going anywhere. The string tension is going to hold it in. It makes absolutely no sense to glue it, but that's what they did.